Bushido code was like the samurai code, right, of conduct. It had connections to Zen Buddhism. And the Bushido code was, I'll see if I can get them right, but it's like, morality, discipline, duty, courage, honor, respect, and integrity. It was very codified, but it was essentially, this is like a way of life, right? That the martial arts, the physical practice is one aspect of it, but the kind of way of life, that code of conduct is kind of it's everywhere. So 100% I agree with that. I think for me too, as somebody who's a choreographer and a director and somebody who's like in a leadership position, those codes are there for me a lot. Like those respecting people, honoring people, those are two really massive things for me.
Hey everyone, this is Briggs Givens. Welcome to the Briggs & Co podcast, the show where I sit down with people who inspire me by living life just a little differently, sometimes a lot differently. I'm your host, and each week I invite artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, scientists, and all the wonderfully unconventional minds in between to share their stories. This is a space where we go beyond the surface, uncovering the life journeys, the methods to the madness, and the daily habits that fuel extraordinary people to do extraordinary things. Whether you're looking for inspiration, new perspectives, or just a peek into the lifestyle of those who dare to be different, you're in the right place. So get ready to meet the dreamers, the doers, and the outliers, because on Briggs & Co., we celebrate the life of living above average. Let's dive in. My next guest has a little snippet of his bio on his website that I feel like is too good not to share. He says, as a child of the 1980s, my love for action films and martial arts got me hooked on movement and storytelling. I started my theater and martial arts training at the age of 5, and this led me to become a very good generalist. I've traveled the world studying everything from Shaolin, Gung Fu, and tap dance to taiko drumming and physical theater. I believe my versatility and the values I carry from martial arts enable me to be an asset on any production. I really don't think I've met another individual quite like Shay Kuebler. He is such a well-rounded, versatile individual and performer with an absolute gift of directing, choreographing, and performing. If you have the chance, please look up Shay Kuebler's work. There's many videos out there of what he's up to. Please enjoy this next episode. Shay, thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly crisp and clear.
Nice. We're on that island Wi-Fi, so it sometimes a little questionable, but hopefully it's all right.
Where are you? You're in Vancouver Island, I presume?
Yeah, so we moved to the Comox Valley, so Courtney, technically.
Beautiful. I go to Nanaimo tomorrow morning, actually.
Well, nice. What are you doing in Nanaimo?
I signed up for this thing, this triathlon. And I don't really know motivation behind it. No, it's the first time, honestly, that I'm doing something like this. I'm super stoked, but like also nervous because I'm like, what is this world?
That's the triathlon world is so yeah, that's like legit, right? That's like run, bike, swim.
Yeah, and I think the swim is what's perplexing me the most because growing up, like I always swam, but I wasn't like technical.
Right.
And so now it's like, oh, there's actual like methods to this madness.
I
So that's
mean,
what
yeah.
I'm.
How long is the swim? Like it's legit.
Yeah, so the swim is 1.5K, and then you go into which like on paper, I'm like, I think when I signed up, I was like, sweet, let's do that 1.5K. And whew, when you like go and train, you barely get through like 500 meters without going like, because you're like not getting the air that you need if you're not breathing properly.
That pacing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the bike is 40 kilometers straight into a 10-kilometer run. So it's like the distances individually are feasible, but compiled, yeah, it's we'll see. We'll see. It's for fun.
That's awesome. Well, I hope it goes well. I think I have to do that at some point. I'm like we can talk about it in the cast, but I'm getting into like my sports sciences. Like I'm already a CPT. I'm doing my professional enhancement specialization to work with like athletes, and I'm also doing corrective exercise specialization with NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine. So I think I want to try it out because I think there's this cool movement of what they call like hybridized athletes, which is like be able to move really fast and coordinated, be able to be really, really strong, be able to run forever. It's like those three shouldn't really coexist, but that's the goal, anyways.
Yeah, pushing the limits a little bit on that. And then like High Rocks has been something that's been picking up and building that hybrid athlete as well, which I'm
Mm.
not sure if you're familiar with that. But
What's it called?
High Rocks?
High Rocks. No, I don't know it.
Okay, look into it. I'll send you a little details on that because I actually think you'd be captivated by it. But yeah, anyways, that's why I'm in Nanaimo, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, so honestly, great to meet you. Like I have never met you in person, but I've heard so many good things about you, and you were somebody that was recommended to me. A handful of people, like a handful of my guests were like Shay, 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 and I was just a matter of like, okay, breaks, reach out to Shay. So thank you.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Well, that's nice to hear that there's people out there that would recommend me. That's nice.
Okay, so Shay, for guests that may or may not know you in whatever titles you take, roles you take, if you could just give a little bit of an introduction into who you are, kind of just what your interests are as a human and what your professional world entails.
Yeah. So my name is Shay Kuebler. I grew up in a place called Sherwood Park, right outside of Edmonton, Alberta. And I grew up doing martial arts and theater. That was kind of like my start, my foundation, and that got me into dance. And so when I moved to Vancouver when I was 19, I got into like the commercial dance scene. Was doing a little bit of everything: hip hop, jazz, tap, a little bit of everything. And started getting into film and TV. So that was kind of my first foray into like the professional field in Vancouver. I started working professionally a little bit younger. I started teaching when I was about 14, which is crazy. I was 14. I taught hip hop classes in Edmonton. I was like one of the first hip hop dance teachers there in like the, the late 90s, I guess. So I was teaching there. That moved me into like performance and choreography. And then as I kind of moved through my career in Vancouver, I started working as a choreographer, started working with some contemporary dance companies, first and foremost as a performer. I got introduced into the contemporary dance world, which was cool because it was a mixture of all these different dance forms coming together. Uh, Went to Brazil where I worked and trained with a company there. Started bringing in my martial arts background again, where I learned capoeira and stuff like that, which then eventually brought me into making my own contemporary dance work with a collective called 605 Collective, which then branched me off into making my own company called Radical System R, which is also a contemporary kind of dance theater company. So while I was doing film and TV stuff, commercial work, I started branching out into this concert dance world with contemporary dance. And then from there, I did a show in Scotland, which got me introduced to some
Mm.
people who worked for Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and these big water shows. And then I started working as a choreographer and then eventually show director, artistic director on these giant water shows where I worked with like high divers and synchronized swimmers and acrobats, martial artists. So my career has been a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I kind of believe in the science of synchronicity. It's like this idea that, you kind of give energy to something and it sprouts up like a tree and these branches of opportunity come out. You can't really project exactly what the opportunities will be, but they will be opportunities. And I feel like my career has been like that. Like there's been offshoots to film and TV. There's been offshoots to like commercial dance. There's been offshoots into like this crazy contemporary dance world where my company's now been in operation for 10 years and we've toured the world a couple different times. So yeah, I just feel really blessed and fortunate for all those experiences. And I consider myself a very good generalist when it comes to like the performing arts.
Is there a point where you lose the title of generalist and start to say you're a specialist in like I think when we get into our own worlds, we think that our world is so big, but like from a third party's point of view right now, I'm like, you are a specialist in all of those things that you just said. But that is from a third party's perspective, and I think we're our like hardest critiques. I wouldn't say generous is a bad thing to have, but I do think like when you're starting off, you're like, oh, I'm just learning, oh, I'm just learning, I'm just a generalist, I'm just learning. But it's like what you have just at least shared and what I know about you and your career, it's like you are now becoming, I think, a specialist in a lot of like in a handful of those things that you just said. So like I tip my hat off to you because there's very few people that have the background that you have and the quality of work that you have because I think you've dedicated yourself now for many of years in those specific areas that you just shared that I think you're now like very much a specialist in those worlds, at least in my eyes. And I mean that in the like nicest way possible because it's really a gift to see the work that you put out into this world. And so for listeners, like I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have this martial arts inspiration for a lot of the work that you create. So when I watch any of your shows, or anything that you create, there is this like foundational level of martial arts, which is so rare. And I think that's what's most captivating, at least again in my eyes. So maybe can you take me back to where the heck martial arts came from in your world? And is it still in your world today? Is it something that you do as a spiritual practice, or is it more of a physical practice, or is it both? Just take me back to where martial arts came into your life.
This is always something fun to talk about. So I was born in 1984. So like literally when I was a little kid, it was like the boom of martial arts films and action films. Like the 80s was just the apex of like action martial arts films as a genre. Like the 70s started to have a real big push. But the 80s were just like it was the golden era. 80s into like mid 90s. So I think growing up, I think I saw a lot of it, and I was like, it was a part of my like social experiences to see martial arts, to see karate, to see action films. And so when I was about four, I think I was about 4 years old, I started karate. I was my sensei's youngest student. He was like not sure if he should start with a student that
Oh
young.
my god.
But yeah, so I started with my karate like training when I was four. And I don't know, I just really loved the ability to like put oneself fully into something. So with karate,
Mm,
you do these things where you do one technique and it's like put everything you can into it. It's a really hard, it's called a hard style in martial arts, because literally it was a self-defense form primarily. And so when you practice these techniques, you're like literally putting all of yourself into each punch, into each kick. The action
okay.
like really, it's really pure and kind of distilled in that way. So I think I don't know, for some reason I really just gravitated to that. I think I love the ability to like just put 120% into things. And the discipline side of it, like getting really like specific and really accurate with things, I really appreciate it. So I think it had this nice duality to it, like fully go wild, but at the same time it's controlled.
Right.
And it's funny because that ethos right there, the idea of giving yourself fully to something and like kind of having this like
Yeah.
reckless abandonment, but also then being controlled with like refinement and technique. Like that's still there. Like my company name is the company's name is Radical System Art,
Mm,
because I like this idea of that art, that mastery comes from the combination of the radical, which is like this boundless energy, creativity. It's like it's wild, right? And then there's the system, which is the technique, the learned behavior, the learned skills. Those two coming together is like that's true mastery. That's kind of one of the quotes from Bruce Lee. He has one about how true mastery is when you're not acting with technique. You're essentially being yourself. The way you innately or instinctively act is with technique. So I think that that really kind of, anyways, martial arts really created this foundation for me where I think I appreciated putting my energy so fully into something, but also appreciated the practice, the discipline, the repetition. And I think that really facilitated like dance practice, athletics.
mm.
Like it really kind of transcends a bunch of different forms. And
Shay,
so
I have a quick question for you actually,
yeah.
because you might, this is just sparking something in my head, because I teach yoga and practice yoga for lots of years and did some martial arts myself, but very, very recreational, kind of dip my toe in it. But I now starting to realize, like with yoga, we've got 8 limbs essentially, and one of those limbs is the physical asanas. And I'm curious to know if martial arts, if it's a way of life, and one of those limbs, if you will, is the physical element of it. Because it sounds like there's this coupling of lifestyle where you know, you're learnt or taught these methods, these ways of living, and this way of thinking and presenting yourself in the universe. But then also there's the physical side of it where you're taught techniques physically as well. Is there anything to say about that, or is that just something that I am seeing similarities in?
No, I mean they have 100% have connections. I mean there's theories that yoga and Buddhism, traveled from India and moved through Asia. And I've been fortunate to train in Shaolin Kung Fu as well at the Shaolin Temple in China,
Wow.
and they still they have a Buddhist practice there. Meditation is like the first thing you do in the morning. Then you do your qigong, you do some tai chi, like so. There's a mind and body practice. They're kind of honed and focused in certain ways, but they're always shared. And I think that same with martial, like same with karate. there's this idea of having a sharp mind, having a strong mind, and then the body will become sharp and become strong. I think that they're very much connected. And then, martial arts, and especially Japanese martial arts, they have connections to like Bushido code. And Bushido code was like the samurai code, right, of conduct. It had connections to Zen Buddhism. And the Bushido code was, I'll see if I can get them right, but it's like, morality, discipline, duty, courage, honor, respect, and integrity. I think it's those
Mm.
seven. It was very codified, but it was essentially, this is like a way of life, right? That the martial arts, the physical practice is one aspect of it, but the kind of way of life, that code of conduct is kind of it's everywhere. Right? Transcends everything. So 100% I agree with that. I think for me too, as somebody who's a choreographer and a director and somebody who's like in a leadership position, those codes are there for me a lot. Like those
Mm. Mm.
respecting people, honoring people, those are two really massive things for me. I have a bit of a thing for when I feel like people are being disrespectful or dishonoring others. I have a real hard time with that. And it's happened in bigger projects. I've been in some really, really big productions where I've had to either step out or step forward to kind of have leadership be more
Announce.
accountable, to be
Yeah.
accountable. Because I'm asking myself to be more accountable as a leader. I've had to take my hits in that arena as a leader and try to be better and try to learn from my mistakes and be better. Show more honor, show more respect, show integrity with that position of being a leader and being a director and having that responsibility. So I think it does transcend everything, and that
Mm.
practice physically is just one aspect of martial arts.
Then would I guess where I'm because I'm so captivated by your story, and I want to know then, was there a leader, was there a mentor, was there somebody that in your life had like told you to stay connected, to stay rooted to your martial arts roots? Or was that something that you personally took on yourself as you aged, as you grew? You just felt this natural connection to it, and you wanted to keep it in your life.
That's really interesting. I mean, I know for sure, my first sensei was very influential on me. My first sensei, Sensei Steve Hartnett in Sherwood Park with the Sherwood Park Karate Do. Um, but I think similarly to my father was very influential on that as well. My dad showed he was a leader in his business for over 40 years. He was
Mm.
like a district manager of a company. He showed me a lot about being respectful, and that there's a certain kind of idea which is both in martial arts, and I think it's important for men to hear this too, that there's the ability to show strength without being forceful. There's an ability to be intelligent and be respectful and listen. And I think my father really demonstrated that as well for me. So I think my first sensei, my father, and then as I kind of moved through dance and in the commercial dance world, like it's interesting. I think my martial arts was always there in the background, and maybe at times it kind of stepped back. And I wasn't maybe as conscious of it that it was there. But as I came back to it more and more in my practice, especially when I started, I moved to Vancouver when I was 19, and I literally moved there. I'm like, I'm going to become a choreographer. I want to become a choreographer. And then it slowly migrated into becoming a choreographer, artistic director, etc.
Mm.
And I think that as I kind of moved more into those leadership positions, it started to like kind of become something that I really are relied upon, or it was there intuitively, I guess I would say. So yeah, it's interesting that those things that we learn so early on, especially when we have good leadership and we have people that demonstrate those principles. I think that's a big thing of it. I think about that now too as a young father. I'm not young, but my son is only 2 years old. But
I would say you're pretty young though, still.
yeah, still, I guess, yeah, ish. But yeah, that the people that demonstrate it, like they say this, like kids and young people model themselves after people. You can tell them something and they probably won't listen, but they will always like mirror what you do. So
Yeah.
I feel fortunate that I've had those models growing up.
Yeah. Do you take on leadership now roles within your career? I know that you had mentioned that you're starting new programs and um, launching a few things in the coming months. Do you, I guess, is this now a chapter that you're transitioning to, or has this been something that's been on your mind, sort of building, 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 and now you're like, okay, I have the tools in my tool belt. I'm ready to now give them back or share them? Because I think obviously you've always shared them. You've always been a leader in some way, shape, or like because you've been a director, because you've been a choreographer. But now you're really taking on a whole new sort of element by creating another program. So, is this another chapter in your life? Not to digress you or take you away from other things, but how do you look at that? How do you look at this new exciting, I guess, two? If you want to touch on the two that you're developing, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I felt like, it's been 20 years that I've been working in the performing arts and in the field. Um, and I think there was just a natural transition that started to happen. My son was born 2 years ago. I worked on one of the craziest productions I've ever worked on. It was I won't go through the details and name names because I won't do that, but worked on a production that was probably the most expensive, biggest production ever put on by a company. And was in a place of leadership as a co-artistic director, show director of this like massive multi-million dollar show. And I think that I was working with people that were in co-leadership positions or in leadership above me, and I just saw a lot of mismanagement. I saw a lack of integrity to the job, a lack of integrity to the position, and I was sacrificing time from family. So it became a big thing for me that like the universe, I felt like, was like saying to me, "Hey man, like let's just shift, let's transition a little bit out from this kind of the production commercial world for a second." And as I stepped back, there's all these things that I had been kind of holding on to in the back burner. Like writing, creative writing is a big one that I want to continue to develop, and including screenwriting and script writing. And then really the two businesses that I was already kind of developing, one was to actually do a performing arts program that is really about trying to build essentially the most versatile performing arts program possible. I feel like versatility has been the biggest thing in my life that's really shown me like success. And I believe that versatility, and again, talking about being a specialist as a generalist, is kind of what has enabled me to thrive in this industry. So one of those things was like, I really want to make a program, a performing arts program that is like, let's literally give everybody exposure to as many things as possible, give them as broad of an education and training experience possible when it comes to the performing arts. Like that's film and TV, that's concert dance, that's commercial dance and productions, that's writing, that's directing, that's choreographing, that's performing. So that's one of the things that just has always been there in the background. And I just, with the performing and directing world that I was in at the time, it felt like I couldn't do it right then. But that's something that I really want to do now. It's something that I think is really important. And I feel like it's something that I have to offer, and
Yeah.
I think of myself with my peers. I've been exposed to so many different things because of the martial arts and the theater and the dance and the mixture of things. So yeah, so it feels like it was the right transition. And part of that program too is to actually work on people about leadership, because I think it's such an important skill. If you're going to, there's so many people that get thrown into the arena so early and so young and so quickly that don't have maybe the tools or want to be able to collaborate better, communicate better. Those are such essential things to have. So that's a big part of that program. And then the second part of it is I've always wanted to work with like regular people too, outside of just like, our dancers and crazy high end athletes, but also work with regular people on training and movement and coordination. And that's like, I have this movement athletics performance program that I'm going to be building where I'll work with everybody from like high end athletes and performers, which of course I want to specialize with working with performers because for me, injury prevention, injury resistance, conditioning, those things were literally so critical for me to be able to perform at the age of 40. But the second part of that is to work with seniors even on coordination and footwork and fall prevention and things that'll like help people have greater quality of life, longer quality of life. So those two programs feel like something that's like beneficial generally to most people that I feel like I could give to that space. And I think I enter into the kind of fitness world in a different way because I come from martial arts, dance, and then athletics. It's not just athletics, or it's not just bodybuilding, like it's a mixture of things. So yeah, I think that the tangent, that digression is that the world and the universe, if I will say the universe,
Yeah.
speaking in synchronicity, kind of brought me to this point where it felt like these two programs, businesses, are at the right time now with all the experiences I've had and where I'm at in my life.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're also a father as well. Like, I mean, there's so many things that come up in our life. I feel like we go in these phases, these chapters where like where it's ebb and flows. We're always moving. I think sometimes we feel like we're one identity, but it's like I know at least in yoga, and I think back to it all the time, is our skin cells. I can't remember exactly the stats, but like we brush off essentially like inches of skin every year. And so it's like I think it's the idea of we are always changing. Like we are never the same human being. And I think that we can attach ourselves to these identities. Like we are a commercial dancer, or we are a accountant, or whatever it is, you attach ourselves to these identities. And I think you're a perfect example of just kind of using the tools that you've built up, the experiences that you've gone through. Also, what I'm starting to realize is you're great for like identifying people that you like, and people that, or characteristics of people that you don't like so much. And so it's like I think those are just as powerful to acknowledge as the ones where you're like, oh, I really like them, I want to be more like them. It's like, I didn't like the way that that person made me feel, I don't want to do that, like, or whatever that may be. So, and I'm just observing and listening to you sharing, and I'm like, you've got these really unique, I guess, perspectives on things, and I think that's allowed you to put yourself in places that not a lot of people get the chance to be in. Like, as you were saying, you traveled to Asia and got to experience a lot of things there, but then you also are, developing these programs because you have such this like envelope of skills and tool sets to share. And now it's time for you to share them. And I think that the world is so utterly lucky to have people like you give back, because there's a lot of people that have done a lot of things that don't give back. And I think that if you have it in you, like you do, to give back, that's super important. So I'm super stoked to see those programs start to kind of envelop. But I want to take us back to Asia, because I'm personally, this is probably just a selfish thing, really interested in what you did there, how long you were there, and any stories that you have, like even ones that, I think when you touch down, I've been to Asia myself, and it is honestly, it's a bit of a culture shock, for lack of a better term. It's just like, wow, I'm in a whole new world. So if there's any stories of like those moments that you can bring to the table, that'd be sweet.
Oh my God, China was such a so I went to Japan first. I did training in Japan in 2011, and it was amazing. I mean, I went to Japan because obviously my foundation in the arts generally, and I think really some of the foundations I have just as like a human with like my value systems was really influenced by Japanese culture in terms of like, doing karate, Shito-Ryu, and the Bushido code, and that, the kind of value systems of martial arts. So I went there. I was also kind of wanting to study and work on a show. And that was amazing. I think I was just so touched by the sense of like respect that they had for everything. Like I know that I can't remember what the name is, but of course the Japanese have such beautiful kind of expressions for things. But there's this idea of being at one or homeostasis with nature, and I remember seeing buildings where like they literally built around a tree, or like put a hole in a roof so that the tree could grow through, or like just really beautiful things. There's just such a sense of like respect and honoring things that I felt was just so beautiful. And obviously like the culture of the arts there is really amazing too. I got to do taiko drumming, and just seeing kind of this beautiful balance again of something that's so physical and so powerful, yet has such specificity and refinement. It was just really, it was a really impactful trip for me. But when I went to China, that was like, holy, that's such a different world, especially when you go to the Shaolin Temple. Outside of the Shaolin Temple area, the Shaolin kind of like district is like this mountainous area. There's a city called Dongfang, and Dongfang is like a super modern city. It is like so busy. It's like very loud. There's like crazy car traffic. It's like such a dichotomy between those two worlds. Like you literally cross into the walls of the Shaolin Temple, and it feels a lot more like peaceful and holistic, and like you walk a lot more. There's maybe a scooter here or there. I think you're only allowed like maybe one or two cars are allowed in every once in a while for like to drop off like a lot of things. So anyways, it's such a crazy dichotomy.
Kind of like old world, new world, or like
Totally,
ancient
totally.
world.
Old world
Yeah,
and new
yeah,
world, literally with like a
yeah,
wall separating them.
yeah.
I mean, there were some amazing things. Like I think within the first, so I studied at the Shaolin Temple. My shifu was named Shifu Yanjun, and he is a 36th generation Shaolin monk, which is unbelievable. So that's a legacy that's right there with him. Within the first 3 days, I think the first day that I trained there, it was in the middle of the summer. It was like 37 or 38 degrees outside, and we did like sparring training in a field outside. And I just remember how absolutely rocked I was, like just
Yeah.
sweaty. And I think I ended up
Can I
having
get some electrolytes?
yeah, yeah. I think I ended up actually having like a small sparring session with the Shifu too. Like it was very like controlled and light, but you're still using some speed and some technique, like pretty legit. Um, and then I think like the next day after we had like a power stretching day and I like slightly pulled my hamstring and then I like pushed through that and like it was a very legit martial arts experience and throwing your leg up on a stone wall to stretch every morning and like running around the Shaolin Temple area for your warm up and conditioning, running up a mountain 3 times. Like they have a mountain that has a temple on top where you can pray. We ran up that on our Fridays as a conditioning thing. It was just like
So
there was
was
just so
this
many
something that sorry, that you, because you were what? You were how old when you went to China?
30.
Okay, so then you did this on your own. This was like sort of a your own journey that you took there. You wanted to do a martial arts
Yeah, it was like a
study.
self-directed martial arts movement study.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There was no like job that you were taking and then you kind of did a side path over and did that and nothing like that. You did this on your own.
Yeah, no, I applied. I
Cool.
was really fortunate. I applied to, I believe it was the Canada Council for the Arts for this training grant, and I got a grant to like go there. So I'm
Wow.
really fortunate. Like I've been very fortunate. I've had a couple training grants. Like one was to Brazil where I studied capoeira. Another one was to Japan where I studied like I did aikido, judo, taiko drumming. I even did some traditional fan dancing, which was amazing because I was the only guy in the class. And I was a gaijin, so they were just like, no. The teacher was really sweet. She gave me a fan at the end of the sessions. um,
Oh, that's
but that's
funny.
actually, honestly, like when I go full circle with those experiences, like, and I say this to everybody, like, and Bruce Lee is such an amazing artist because he really is like such a philosopher along with being this amazing martial arts practitioner. But he says like, where we grow the most is when we're in these places where we're uncomfortable because this discomfort is really like, oh, I don't know this. Like, I'm not good at this. And I feel like I was fortunate that I exposed myself to a lot of those really early on, which exposed me again to like getting better, getting more the versatility, just broadening my skill sets and being humbled too, because I got humbled a lot. That was fun. Uh,
Yeah,
you have to be
I
okay
bet.
with it.
Right. I actually had Shay, it's funny, you just mentioned, like, you just being humble, and also tossing yourself in the deep end, because you know that on the other side of that deep end, hopefully, there's nothing but, like, growth. And so I actually had written down, was there ever a time, because in this, world of creativity, um, we take on jobs that are sometimes, like, you're not really sure what entails. And so is there any roles that you took on where you got like to day one or whatever that may be, and you were like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I'm in over my head or something like that. And then if there was that, can you share like a little bit of the details and how you what tools you use to just buckle down and get her done?
Jeez. Well, it's funny. I think I was really into choreography like before I moved to Vancouver when I was 19. And I was just like, I don't really know how to make I mean, it starts with like you just try to make like a 5 minute solo. I think that was one of the first things I made was like a 5 or 7 minute solo for like some kind of contemporary dance showcase called Small Stages. I had no idea what I was doing. I think I was like, how do I even make a solo this long? I've been at dance competitions and stuff like that. But then I also was like, I was in it was kind of contemporary art kind of festival, scenario. And I was like, I guess hip hop is, artistic. I was like trying to figure out how I fit into this world. But it was great because by thrusting myself into it, I realized I'm like, oh no, like I grew up doing theater. I actually really love like dramatic arts. Like it was such a big part of my background growing up. And then I thought about like how martial arts and dance, how they share a space together. And then I thought about how the hip hop training I was doing was kind of a contemporary dance form because I was like bringing in house dancing and I was
Right.
locking and I was popping and I did a bit of breaking and like I started to be like, okay, with that right there, I'm already mixing forms. So I think those couple early little like solos and showcases I did in Vancouver just kind of threw me into the world and being like, no, like choreography, contemporary art, if you will, is just really what you're interested in and all the different things that make you who you are. And I think that just gave me a bit more confidence and reassurance that I could make stuff. And I was really fortunate. I want to shout out her name. Donna Spencer at the Fire Hall Art Center she's an amazing artistic director, and she gave me an opportunity to choreograph like a 15-minute piece. I had never choreographed anything past 5 minutes. But it was a 15 to 20-minute piece it's called Dancing on the Edge Festival, which is like the longest running dance festival in Canada. I think it's like 37 years old.
Wow.
Anyway, so I got this opportunity to do this piece, and it really, that 15 minutes like opened the whole trajectory of my like kind
Right.
of concert dance world life.
Yeah.
Because I actually ended up from there working with Le Grand Ballet for a choreographic competition, which is crazy. That was also one that was terrifying, because I was like, I'm working with a ballet company and I'm a hip hop dancer, tap dancer, who's done ballet training, but like was not a good ballet dancer.
You just like lightly touched it.
Well, I was in it. I was in it
Yeah.
because I did martial arts for so long. There was just certain things my body was like not great with turnout. Ability in ballet was always like not my strength. I just had these limitations. They were very, very apparent when you're wearing tights and white slippers. And
There's
so
no wiggle room there.
yeah. So those two experiences, I will say that that ballet one, especially with like Grand Ballet, really it terrified me of like, how do I translate what I want to do to artists that don't do what I do, don't come from the same background. So I think those are early kind of creative directing, choreographing opportunities. They really they kind of force you to look at what you do and how you can work with different people, or artists from different backgrounds. I feel really fortunate for those. But yeah, those first early stages of like trying to make longer shows, pieces, and then working with like Grand Ballet when I was like 22 or 23, those really pushed me into like a different space of comfort, I guess you would say.
Yeah, that's that's really neat. And I think like passing the threshold of what you're used to, like even with training or running or biking or whatever it is, it's like I always say to people when they go for runs or whatever and they're asking about longer distances, like how do you run longer? It's like, well, what are you running right now? And if they say, 5 kilometers, it's like just go for 6 or go for 5.5. Just go for that little extra bit. And like you'll see yourself on the other side going, holy shit, I can do 5.5, I can do 6. And then from there it's just like, oh, maybe I can do 7, maybe I can do 8. And so like for you to go from 5 minutes to 15 minutes, it's like, oh, hang on, there is a way, you can do this, interesting. And then you grow from there. So that's really kind of cool how that happened for you. I want to know a little bit about how you kind of see yourself in this world, and if you do see yourself continuing with the dance industry and creative arts, all of that stuff, is it something that you will age with and continue to do forevermore, or do you find yourself kind of going, I'm so grateful for the work I've done, I'm going to transition now to other things, or are you like, I'm just getting started, like I'm ready to do some bigger things in this world?
I mean, I think I'm always going to want to be doing the creative work with the performing arts. Like I think I found the sweet spot the last show that I did with my company. I've always felt like I was kind of bridging theater and dance together, which has become a very big thing now, which is funny. Like the first show I did back in 2011 uh, was like really like it was a physical theater piece. It was really dance. There was a lot of heavy dance and like really intensive like physical dance, but it was very theatrical. It's talking about essentially this expression in Japan is called karoshi, which means death from overwork. Um, so it kind of was talking about value systems, really. Modern values, traditional values, these kind of holistic values, and commercial corporate values, like how they
Right.
mix and balance and offset each other or whatever. Um, so I think that I found this like beautiful sweet spot for me with the work that I do with my company, where I'm like, I'll always want to make work with my company, especially with my company with Radical System Art. The beautiful thing about it is that it is this space for me to just see what's possible. And I think that I will always want to create in that way. But I also think that no matter what, like I'm always going to want to be creative. And the creative writing thing is an offshoot that I've been wanting to do for a long time, because I know that I can be a director probably until I'm quite old. I can be a choreographer. I feel like in the way that I do it right now, maybe for another 10, 20 years, because
Right, because you're pretty physical with it, right? Like, would you say
yeah,
that you're everything that you're choreographing, you're doing as well? Like,
yeah,
you're showing
well, it's,
physically how to
it's
do it.
interesting. I started to move into a different method of working where I feel like it's a 50-50 combination of me and the artists and the dancers and the performers I work with. Like I love setting ideas and worlds and concepts with movement, because I have this like range of things that I want to pull on. And then I also, there's a lot of scenes like the show that we're working on with a company that will hopefully get to premiere here in the next year. It's all about dreams. And, there's certain languages or vocabulary that feel like very theatrical and very specific. But I know that it's really important that the artists fulfill that one. Like if there's a solo that's being performed, one of the solos is about, it's called shell shock originally from World War I, but then it became post-traumatic stress disorder. They discovered
Mhm.
that pretty much, I think it was like 90% of patients who had PTSD never had dream sleep. And so what dreams, then it uncovered this whole study into like, what
Wow.
are dreams? How important are dreams to our neurological, psychological health? And so anyway, so there's this solo in the show that's about PTSD and re-experiencing and trying to understand that like trauma that has happened to you is in the past and uncoupling from the past and being present now. So there's this kind of time warping,
Yeah.
experiencing, re-experiencing. And I know that needs to be done by the performer. So I think I kind of have this 50-50 balance. But when it comes to like being in the work, like super physically, I feel like as a choreographer, that's kind of, I have a window of where I want to do that for.
Yeah.
But when it comes to directing, like I feel like, especially artistic direction, I've been fortunate to be able to do that with my company for 10 years and be a part of a couple big water shows in that role. I feel like that I could keep doing for a long time. And I love that because it's really about world building, and it's about trying to create the experience that the audience, is gonna experience. Everything from like when they sit down, what music is going on, what are they seeing, what kind of statements or questions are you putting into the shows, like what visuals are going to really land like certain ideas or concepts. Like I love that. And so I think I'm always going to be creative. And eventually, like I keep saying this, the writing side of things, I have a book that I want to write that's about that too. It's just that I think creativity is our greatest gift. I've written that in so many things now in programs and stuff, but I feel like it is essential. And I think that everybody genuinely needs an outlet to be creative. Um, I think that,
I would argue that people find one.
yeah, yeah,
I think that I was thinking about that for a while actually, because there's certain people in my life where I'm like, wow, you're really not that creative. But in their way, they find a way to be creative because I think it's in us. Like and some people are just more expressively creative and more it's become who they are. So it's more apparent. But I think as humans, I don't know, like whether it just be you have a certain few songs that you like and it's that the beats in that song that is creativity. And I think your I guess appeal to music, say, is also a form of creativity in, I think I would argue as well. So I think I couldn't agree more with you.
mm,
The importance of creativity, especially if you are a professional where there is lack of. I think to watch what building a more creative outlet uh, in your life outside of the professional world, or even within it, if you can, what that could do for you and what that could do for your career as well. Because we can get so stuck in our ways. And I think you mentioned the fact that when you're creative director, you have to think about so many things, like from so many perspectives. Um, who was I talking to about this on the show? It was Morgan Tanner. He was mentioning when he was helping with one of the Olympic shows, he had to run up like I don't know how many floors in the arena to just go see it from another perspective. Like you're so maybe actually, if you could, Shay, for minute or two, just with some listeners, like they're not a part of the dance industry at all. They really have no idea what these titles even are. Um, what a creative director is, because we see it on like credit scores at the end of a movie and a show, and we see it on programs and live theater and all this stuff. But what does actually a creative director do? If you could share that.
well, it's kind of a hybrid role. Like, so I said, artistic director and creative director and
Sorry,
artistic director.
thank
No,
you.
no, 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 no. But I'm saying it's funny because they're kind of nebulous in some ways. Because your creative director and artistic director in some ways do similar things. They're kind of involved with like all the artistic treatments of a show, so that your costuming, your visuals, your sound, your overall start to finish, right? It's literally like if you're writing a book, like what does the cover look like? What does the first page got to say? What
Right.
does the last page got to say? What are our chapters trying to say? it's kind of like you're trying to bridge and hit all the major things that an audience experiences. That to me is kind of like what a creative and artistic director do. They have to have the whole vision in front of them. You know, if you think of it like a treatment board or a visual board or a lookbook, I like that.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
cool way. The lookbook.
Yeah.
I think that's Spike Lee. Spike Lee has that lookbook. I think I started using that as well. So when you would do a project as an artistic or creative director, the lookbook has like artistic kind of quotes or references, like this is what the show wants to say or feel like. And then you have visual references of like this is what the lighting and video want to say overall. And then that also gets into the details. And I feel like this is like, again, if comparing it to writing, which a lot of people understand, like each scene in a show is like a chapter, and you can kind of think that each chapter has a statement in there or something,
Mm.
sentiment or a feeling that the audience wants to experience, which is the beautiful thing about like performing arts, right? Is that maybe it's really literal, maybe it's really just more sensory
Right.
based, or maybe it's really emotional, like, so it's fun to tap into that and to feel like what each chapter needs to be. So yeah, so your artistic and creative director is kind of like the full vision of the show. And then as you go down from that, you have your show director, and the show director is like hands on each scene, kind of detailing start to finish how things are going to connect and flow. And they work with their choreographers who specialize in certain things. So, like for me, when I was show director for a few different water shows, like I worked with my dive choreographer coordinator, my synchronized
Right.
swimmer dive coordinator, choreographer, my acrobat coordinator,
Jeez.
and I would look at the scene and go like, okay, cool, this music is kind of feeling like this, so let's have this dance scene happen here. So there's going to be 30 seconds of dance choreography, but the acrobat has a solo, so we're going to make sure the dancers or the dance choreography kind of moves to highlight the acrobat for 30 seconds. And then the lifts in the theater need to go down, and that takes about 45 seconds. So the dancers are going to do this thing on this lift while it goes down into the water,
Right. Right. Right.
and then the diver can go. And that for me, the beautiful thing about the performing arts, and actually really I think it's Marlon Brando says everything's a stage, right? Everyone's performing on a stage. Well, to me, everything is choreography, like, and I think that that's a cool thing when you look at a production. The artistic director is kind of looking at this broad vision. The show director is kind of looking at more of like the start to finish, connecting the dots and the choreography, the staging, the blocking. And then you have your specified choreography of like my synchronized swimmers are hitting 6 beats of music doing all these techniques, boom, 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 right? So, but all of that together is choreography. It's just a different kind of scope, if you will, like
Mhm.
macro, micro, mezzo,
Yeah,
so
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
The elements involved within the
yeah,
macro.
yeah, but
Yeah,
I
that's so neat. And I think there's going to be a lot of listeners that are going to go, "Oh, okay." So Shay, I feel like there's so much to still uncover and discover about your journey and kind of the what's to come with everything that you're creating. Um, but just with the time that we're given, I do want to transition to some just like a light, not lighthearted. It's all been lighthearted, but just kind of one-off questions. More so on the topic of random things, everyday things. So if there was like a world where not involved with choreography, with directing, with dance, anything like that, what are your random hobbies? Like, do you like to run? Do you like to read? Do you like to cook? Like those kind of things.
cool. Well, it's so funny because I feel like they're hobbies, but they're also offshoots of things that I will turn into some kind of business because I love them so much. I'm pretty avid on my cross training. So I have a pretty consistent training, and I say training because it's not just working out. Like I'm not just doing bicep curls. Like I've kind of tried to optimize like my conditioning and strength training. So I do that every week, at least 3 to 4 times a week. That's definitely something I just, for me, and I will say this is part of my training program that I'm training philosophies. Like I get into these positions of like high stress and really intense pressure, like working on shows where the stakes are so high, people can die. That's how intense the stakes are. And exercise and conditioning and working on the physical tool, the physical body has always been something that's really been great for mental health. So that's something I'm always doing as a hobby, but also just I think is almost a value, a way of life. Um,
Can
love,
I ask for you to
yeah,
dig into like just a little bit what those look like? What are those actual specific things that you're doing on three to
training wise.
three? Yeah.
Uh, it's kind of a mixture. I didn't really know I was doing this until I started doing my schooling, but I kind of do like a bit of a, like we said, hybridized athlete. So I kind of do complex training. I do a lot of supersetting where I'm doing pretty heavy lifting and then also still trying to be like explosive with like jump training. I do a lot of like skipping and footwork drills because I think that, well, they talk about it as we age. Like the biggest thing that goes now is our type 2 fast twitch muscle fiber. So a big part of my training philosophy too is maintaining our speed and our explosivity, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But lifting heavy too. I also really care about lifting heavy for mobility and like ligament tendon health and strength.
Mm.
So that's a big part of injury resistance for me. That was a big part of like in my career. I've literally injured almost everything from like my pinky toe up to like a frozen shoulder here on the right side. So yeah, so it's a mixture of pretty heavy lifting and like but full range of motion, like increasing mobility, right? Having strength in places of flexibility, and then speed. Working that speed jump kind of training.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what else? What else are you doing on a daily that you're like, yeah, this has nothing to do with anything that I'm doing
Oh
professionally?
man, I here's the thing. I really I do try to read consistently. That sometimes falls off. I try to write at least 15 minutes a day. There's this thing called radical incrementalism. I'm a big fan of this now. There's a book called 4,000 Weeks. So I'm trying to do at least 15 minutes of writing every day. I have like 7 or 8 different script ideas that I started. I finished my first full script a while back and I'm working on another
Hey, that's
one.
big.
Yeah. So there's that. Honestly, I'm from Alberta. I'm from Edmonton, so I'm a big hockey fan. So
Yes.
yeah,
Please say Oilers.
so one of my decompression things is I like to I watch my sports here and there. I mean, hockey's truly not a decompressing sport. It's really
It's not at all, especially not when it goes till 10 or 11 p.m. and then their Oilers are in overtime.
yeah, well, and it's just an emotionally intensive sport. It's just the highs and lows are so fast, the swings are so quick. It's apparently the worst sport to gamble on because the probability is it's so all over the place. Luck,
Oh, really? I actually didn't know that. That's
yeah,
crazy.
luck and chance are like one of the biggest factors. And it's also because I guess your strongest, most skilled players only get to play like about a third of the game, right? So different than basketball and football. So
Yeah. Okay. And you have two or one kid?
I have one son. Yeah.
You have one son. Okay, amazing. Is he in what? How old did you say he was? I don't even think
He
you said
just
he was.
he just turned 2 like
He just
about
turned two.
4 days ago.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's amazing. Those are fun years. Those are trouble years, but fun years.
Oh my gosh.
Is he talking? No,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he chatterbox. He's
talking
he's
so
we're
much. Yeah,
he's like his mom. His mom was apparently like just super smart and really fast and was like singing full songs by the age of 2. He's doing that now. Uh,
developing quickly.
yeah, his memorization is like we'll read like Green Eggs and Ham and he'll finish like the pages. Like we can say like no Sam I am, I will not eat, and he does green egg and ham. Like he
Yeah,
does that. He knows all the
that's awesome.
it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild. Yeah, he's very smart. He's very smart.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so if you were to anything outside of what you're doing right now, a career professionally, if you were to kind of redo your adolescent years and go to college or anything like that for something, what could you see yourself doing?
It's really random. Well, it's maybe not random. It's funny. I think I got really interested in if I could go back, I might become a lawyer actually.
Really?
Yeah, well, because I think that I've been fortunate. I have a couple family members that are lawyers now through my wife, her family, and I think it's funny. I think being a lawyer is being a good storyteller. Not saying you're telling lies or
No,
anything like that.
you're 100% right.
But
You're
but 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 really, you're painting a story for the judge or a jury to understand what happened, who a person is, who they are, what happened. You putting the pieces together and creating a painting or a picture for them, right? You're kind of detailing a story. And I think that it's a career that can have a lot of honor and a lot of integrity, but there's also a lot of people I think that are in there that could lack a lot of honor and lack a lot of integrity. So it feels like a really important space to be in. It'd be a really hard job in terms of leaving the office where the office is. I think
yeah,
that'd be hard to leave the work
yeah,
there,
not bring
not
it
bring the
home.
work home. Yeah, but it does interest me, and I feel like I care working for people. I care working with people, I should say, and I think it's a really honorable field in that way.
Yeah. I was reading about Socrates actually the other day, and how he just developed, he wanted to share the wisdom and the tools for people to convey their own case in court, and how it's a art form and a skill set to be able to understand the listener, and how you can describe things in a certain way so that you're not necessarily saying that what you did was right, but you're giving them almost this like full like character story on how and why you did the things that you did, so then you're convincing them the reason. It's really really cool actually, and it's the first time that I started thinking about lawyers and what it looks like today, um in court, because it is really like, if you are against a jury, you're building stories and trying to share them. Interesting. I mean, there's so many other elements to it, but yeah, that's really neat you just brought that up. Okay, if there was, and I guess it sounds like you've traveled the world many many times, any other place other than Vancouver Island, I guess, that you'd like to live, where would that be?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I mean, in a weird way, I really loved. I mean, just from my experiences being on the ships, like I really do love places that have like lovely beaches. Like obviously we have a beach here, but it's the Pacific Northwest. It's not exactly like warm and cozy for most of the year.
It's that
Um,
cold therapy.
yeah, well, I do love that. Yeah, I think maybe living. This sounds really crazy. My wife would be like, "What?" But like somewhere where like maybe like Costa Rica or somewhere. There's like beautiful beaches. It's warm all the time. I could get down with that. I think that would
Yeah.
be nice. Yeah, I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
random one.
Yeah.
I
It is.
honestly, truly though, truly, my wife and I feel so blessed that we met each other here and that we have family here. Her family's here on the West Coast. Like we think it's like the Pacific Northwest is like one of the most special places in the entire world. So we're very fortunate that way. And honestly, like I know Canada has its foibles and its issues, but like truly, I think they've said this democracy is an imperfect system, but it's the best system. And I feel like Canada is, yes, it's an imperfect country, but it's working towards being one of the better countries we have
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
planet. So I'm grateful for both of those.
For the area that we live in, man. And isn't that true? The more that you travel as well, I think that and this is with anything, but like you start to appreciate the things that you have, because when you start to compare them to things that you've seen, and things that I guess people don't have, and you're like, oh, I am freaking fortunate to have X, Y,
Perspective.
and Z.
Yeah.
Great. Well, honestly, Shay, like I can't thank you enough for taking the time. Time is our most valuable asset. So if there's anything that you want to share with listeners, like I guess if there was a listener here that, was thinking about branching off, doing something a little crazier than they're used to, do you have any kind of advice, I guess, words of wisdom, if you will, something that gets you through those trickier moments, chapters in your life where you're questioning your abilities? Is there anything like that that you can share with?
Yeah, I think I would say, well, it's maybe a kind of a two-pronged kind of answer. One is like if you have to do. I think there's a real challenge we have nowadays of feeling hesitant to try or fail. And like truthfully, like the only way that you get better or that you find success is you do the thing, and I think you just can't hesitate, like I think so often we get caught in feeling like, yeah, I'm not good enough yet, so I'm not going to put it out there. Like an example of like I put out a video on my Instagram of this like running house dancing combination, and I always thought it was a really freaking cool way to bring in house dancing but also with the running culture.
Mm.
And it wasn't really, we did it super quick, it was raining, and I was like, you know what, I'll just put it up there. And it was like not finished, it wasn't polished, and I put it up there and it's like blown up and people love it. And that's just a small example of like, just put the work out there. There's this idea of like volumes, right? Like not every book you write is going to be the New York bestseller. I mean, some
Mm.
authors are just like that, but that like by doing the
But
thing.
actually, I actually want to say something about that, because there's a lot of authors that will write 5 books and not publish five until they wrote the sixth, and they'll publish the sixth. And there's a
Interesting.
lot of authors that do that because they know that up until that sixth book, there might be one, two in there that could have, maybe have, but they're still writing them and going, okay, it's going to be that sixth because I know my method and I know the way that I write. It's that sixth one that I produce that's going to be there. So it's what we see, maybe, that's getting to the New York Times bestseller, but they actually behind the scenes just wrote 5 books and they discarded them. It's crazy what we think we know, what we see, and versus what happens behind the scenes.
Oh, well, that's it,
So,
right? That's it right there. And then I think the second part of that is, and it's so corny to say it, but it is. It's like trust in the process,
Yeah.
because if you can find an ability to find enjoyment in the process, like that's such a big thing. And I think that's also like when we talk even just about training, they talk about intrinsic value, right? Is like this inner sense of like, this is gonna help me, this is good, this gives me something, I think that finding value in the process, then you will find achievements, or you'll find outcomes. We're so we're so often trying to optimize time. We're so often achievement based in the way we look at life, which is it's so intensive with, like, I know it is with social media and seeing everybody doing amazing things. It's like you're saying, it's that sixth book. Like everybody's showing us their sixth book or their seventh
Mm.
book, right? So I think that being able to find enjoyment in the process, in the practice of getting better at something, even though you suck at it, again, being uncomfortable, being happy with being uncomfortable. So those things are really great. Like I think that I'm kind of looking forward to that too right now. I think I'm at the stage of my life too where I'm like, like I'm uncomfortable. I don't I know I'm good, but I'm not great, or I'm not accomplished yet, and like there's discomfort there, right? Because when you've been doing something for like 20 years, there's a sense of like, okay, I know how to do this thing. I've been in the arena, I've got my ass booted a couple times. Sorry, I said ass. I'm said it again now.
I said the S word too, so it's
Okay,
all
perfect. But
good.
yeah, no, I think that those two together, that do the damn thing, just do it, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
keep trying to find enjoyment in the process. I'm super cliche. I'm not really groundbreaking with any of those. I know that. So
But I think what is that age old saying where it's like if it's I don't know where it not ain't broke don't if it's not broke don't fix it, but there's like it's cheesy but it works, like, essentially. So these are things that continue to come up like for decades, for centuries. People have started like saying these things that we're saying, back to Marcus Aurelius, and where it's just the same concepts. It's the same concepts reiterated in different words, sure, but the same foundational meanings. Um, Anyways, I honestly respect everything that you are doing for the dance community, but also just like the human being that you are. I think you've got such a freaking good head on your shoulders, and those that can learn from you are so, so fortunate. So thank you again for everything that you're doing and for taking the time to chat with me today.
that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Take care. Bye,
Bye.
Shay.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Leave Average for Joe. If you found inspiration in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, share the show with a friend, and keep the momentum going. I have been hosting this podcast now for 1 year. It is actually quite insane to think about that because time has flown by, and as that age old saying goes, time flies by when you're having fun. I've had a wicked first year with y'all, but I will say it has proven to be slightly challenging in terms of sustaining on your own without external support. So, regardless of the financial elements of it, if you can, take 2 seconds out of your day to share this show with a friend, share it on the socials, subscribe, leave a comment. You have no idea how far that goes because tiny, tiny little inches, centimeters of progress over time adds up. And that is the goal, is to just create this larger community, larger network so that these stories can be shared and provide more inspiration for more people. Before you go, I'm excited to announce the launch of our brand new website, briggsandco.ca, the home of a first of its kind career consulting service designed specifically for aspiring dance and entertainment professionals. Here's how it works. Just fill out the application form, let us know the areas you want to connect with an expert about, and we'll book you in for a personalized one-on-one call. Our mission is to give performers the tools, knowledge, and confidence they need to turn their training into an award-winning career. You can also sign up for my weekly newsletter at briggsandco.ca for exclusive insights, updates, and resources to help you keep leaving average behind. Stay connected with me on socials at Briggs_and_co_. Oh, if you're feeling old school, send a courier pigeon. Okay, just an email to admin@briggsandco.ca. Thanks again for listening. Keep pushing boundaries, keep breaking the molds, and as always, leave average for Joe, y'all. Take care.